Today is going to be the installation video for the 33.3 Tactical Cam Lock Gen 3.3. The kit consists of a new cam pin with a helical groove and a smaller spring. The back plate is no longer needed because this acts as a takedown pin and allows you to remove separate the upper from the lower for cleaning, as well as working like the standard cam. The tools that you're going to need for this are going to be some kind of oil or wax. You're going to need a set of bolt cutter or wire cutters, and you're going to need some kind of a tool to depress your buffer tube spring and buffer tube. This is also possibly needed for removing the castle nut or another tool that will act in its place. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to separate the upper from the lower, and that's going to happen just standard, and you're going to set that aside. We don't need that anymore. Now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the buffer tube and spring. So that's what the tool is for. We're going to push down on that, get the buffer tube out of there, as well as the buffer tube spring. And this is now going to allow us to remove back open the castle nut. I have already pre-loosened that for the video, so we will back that out. Separating the back plate, making sure that we don't lose the spring and the detent pin. Another thing that you can do is push down the retaining ring and get that turned sideways just a little bit so that you can pull that out easier. Okay, now we're going to take the guts out and we're going to set those off to the side. Okay, now we're going to remove this pin, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to install the new Gen 3.3. What you're going to also do at this point in time is, using a little bit of lube, you're going to spray the pin so it moves freely when it's in the gun. We're going to now install or insert that back in there, and now we need to put the detent and spring back in. So we will install the detent and the spring. Now, one thing we are going to do to the spring is, here was the full size one, which was about 1 inch long, and we're going to want to, using the wire cutters, you're going to want to remove about 1/4 inch. This is very important because the full size, not only is it hard to put back in the gun, but the full size spring puts a lot of pressure on the cam, and in some instances it locks it up. So by removing about 1/4 inch of that, it still works properly, but now it makes it a lot easier to operate the cam. So now we're going to install the spring, and now we're going to lock that back into place and screw that back in. And for the sense of time, you would just tighten down your castle nut. So now we're going to replace the buffer tube and spring. And open up the cam. As you can see, it's got a helical groove on it. So as you overdrive the cam, you will continue to rotate it out, putting a slight bit of tension back against the back detent. The smaller spring that we give you will now drop in directly underneath where the pin is, and now we're back to assembling the weapon. As we close this down, you'll be putting tension on the spring, and now you will just run the cam pin back into a helical fashion. We're going to test it. It should pop just like that. Go back, lock. So that is functioning properly. And now to test the opening, you're going to squeeze together here and there, and then you're going to overdrive, pull that out, and it opens. That concludes the video on the Gen 3.3 33.3 tactical cam lock installation.